What's good, y'all? It's your boy, that kid Shady. Y'all already see the title of the video. I'm gonna be ranking every major artist from the 90s, from the East Coast, right? Now, just a little quick disclaimer. If you don't see a favorite Wu-Tang member or somebody that was in a group or whatever, like they're probably not gonna be in this list. You know what I mean? But I apologize in further advance if you guys don't see who you guys are looking for. But for the most part, I try to get everybody who was some type of figure on the East Coast during the 90s. So without further ado, let's get this out of the way, man. Let's go ahead. Let's start from the beginning. We got Mr. Cheeks. Mr. Cheeks, I heard he a gangster. He crazy. You know what I mean? Solid dude from Queens, New York. In terms of the music, he was cool. I'm gonna give him a solid, C. You know what I mean? Mr. Cheeks wasn't all that good lyrically, but he had some cool music. You know what I mean? Something to vibe to, something to chill. A little something to roll your butt on. Other than that, nothing crazy. Az. He hops on Illmatic with Nas. He has a classic with Life's a Bitch. You know what I mean? And he's nice lyrically. He could rap. You know what I mean? He could rap. But I'm going to rank him a little over Mr. Cheeks. No disrespect to the kid, Mr. Cheeks, but, AZ just nicer than you. Now we got my boy Kool G Rap. In terms of music, I feel like Kool G Rap just wasn't there commercially, but undeniable bars. With that being said, B tier. I don't want to put him any higher because when it came to the music or like in terms of the impact, he just wasn't there. He was a big impact on the artist because he was a big inspiration because of his talent, of his skill. But in terms of what he actually gave to hip hop, I can't rank him any higher than B. You know what I mean? It'd be wrong for me to put him in the same list as these other people who put out these big hits and shifted and grew the culture as big as they did. So, next up, Slick Rick. Slick Rick was somebody who had a really dope style. He had an image. You see Slick Rick, you already know what it is. During the 90s, I was hesitant about putting Slick Rick this high because Slick Rick, I didn't really think he was that great lyrically, but he was a great storyteller. You know what I mean? If you go back and you listen to that song, Behind Bars, listen to that song, Behind Bars. That's an amazing song, bro, about jail and prison. You know what I mean? A great song, so gotta put him above Kool G just because of the creativity and the essence of making music was just on a different level. So B tier, a high B tier. He's damn near A minus. Next up we got Marshall. Now I know Marshall is an East Coast. He's more considered Midwest, but I look at him as an East Coast artist because when I think of Detroit, I think of Eminem, but the style that Detroit has. Eminem just sounded like he was from New York, you know what I mean? Or he got a lot of influence, so I put him on here. And Marshall, during the 90s, I'm not gonna consider everything he did up to this day, but in the 90s, Marshall had what? Infinite and the Slim Shady LP, which is considered a classic by his close fans. I think it's a good album. I don't think it's a classic, but I think it's a good album. Man, I gotta give respect where it's due. Marshall made it so white people could listen to hip hop, and that's why it's as big as it is. Don't let these motherfuckers fool you, man. Don't let these people fool you. Marshall was like the great white hope of hip hop. They seen Marshall doing what everybody else was doing, and they seen that he was white. Come here, buddy. You gonna make us some money. So he expanded to the white people, and it showed clearly. So A, if it was his longevity of his whole career, he'd be an S tier. But I'm just considering the Slim Shady LP and Infinite, and then I know he was involved in the battle scene a little bit. So I think this is appropriate for Marshall. He sold millions of millions of copies of the Slim Shady LP. Nori D. Nori is trash. Nori is trash. Yeah, he got a couple cool songs, but they're saved by the features. They're saved by the features. His lyrically, he's whack. Flow, whack. Creativity, whack. He ain't got nothing going for him, man. So I'm happy he doing the podcast thing now. Stay over there and drink champs with DJ EFN. I ain't never in my life heard somebody say, yo, man, Nori's so dope, man. Never. Nori's in D tier, man. Rakim, I'm gonna put him B plus, because Rakim in the 90s, he had a lot of good songs, and lyrically just out of this world. I got so much respect for Rakim. So much respect for Rakim. Nothing really much to say. Lyrically, he's amazing. He had a couple good hits in the 90s. So I gotta hand it to him. Even though he had a lot of times where he was kind of just disappeared, he still did his things with the stuff that he gave us. So I gotta give credit where it's due. So B plus for Rakim. Fat Joe would be bottom of the list if he didn't discover Big Pun. And I'm not gonna be a conspiracy theorist, but I've heard lots of other people say Fat Joe was having ghostwriters and all this other crazy stuff, which I don't doubt, because you can just hear when he discovered Big Pun that Fat Joe just became better. You know what I mean? But I'm not gonna break into the politics of it. I feel like this is appropriate for Fat Joe. Middle of the pack with C. Gotta give it to him. LL Cool J. A tier, man. A tier. I gotta give it to him. This is another one of those dudes that just got better. He just got better as he aged really well. He knew how to grow with the times, I don't even like LL Cool J. I could say a lot of negative things about LL Cool J based off of his character, based off of the negative stories, I've had a back and forth text one time a couple years back with LL. He was alright. I put him A minus because the song creating is great. He managed to stay relevant. He was Drake before Drake, if you know what I mean. He managed to stay relevant. He ventured into other things in the culture. Like, he's still popping to this day. Not musically, but he still ventured into other things, so as long as he's winning, hip hop is winning. You know what I mean? So I gotta give it to him. LL Cool J is A minus. Lyrically he's not the greatest, but he did get better considering how he entered the game. So yeah, Big L, underground legend. Digging in the crates. With him and Fat Joe and a bunch of other people. I heard him and Cameron knew each other at one point too. I'm gonna give him like a B plus. I'm putting behind Rakim because the song making ability I think just hinders him a little bit. But Big L's nice, one of the best. Taken from us too soon. He became the underground legend that he is today. So I love Big L. Love Big L. A lot of great punchlines, a lot of great freestyles. A lot of great stuff from him overall. And the next we got Onyx, Fredro Starr and all them, I'm kind of conflicted on where to put Onyx, because Onyx is one of those groups where it almost seemed like a phase, to listen to these guys. I don't think they aged super well, but you could listen back to the music and you'll be like, oh man, I remember this. I didn't grow up with it. I'm basing this off of the stories and everything else that people tell me. So, and the music that I can hear today. So I wanna rank this high, but I'm putting you guys behind AZ. To me, it just seemed like it was just a fad. Like, it was just a trend when Onyx was really popping. I know they were huge, but it just seemed like a fad. Like, they died off so quickly. But that's just me. Chic Luch, I'm gonna put you guys behind Onyx. I gotta put you guys behind Fat. Actually, I gotta put you guys here. You guys definitely ain't D tier because you guys are better than Nori by far. And Jada, I'm gonna put Jada ahead of not ahead of Fat Joe, ahead of Mr. Cheeks. Now I'm gonna say this again. This tier list is based off of the 90s only, not what they did after the 90s. 90s only. So, like I said, had this been 2025, the rankings gonna be a lot differently everywhere. The Locks lyrically super nice, super good. Jadakiss phenomenal. Styles P had a phenomenal moments too. Sheik is like an amazing backup man too. They're just a great, gritty, lyrical group. It just sucks that they were managed under Puff, which is ironic. Puff is up next, but they were just mismanaged by Puff, and he tried to turn them into what they weren't. The Locks were like these street grimy dudes. So I mean, they did their thing. They sold records, and they're nice. Oh, hold on. Let me put you guys ahead of Mr. Cheeks. I completely forgot all those songs they had with DMX and Rough Riders. You guys are ahead of Mr. Cheeks, man. Forgot about that. But next is Puff. Despite all the crazy stuff we hear about Diddy and everything, amazing producer, great management. He just had like a lot of shady contracts that people like to highlight over. So in terms of just rap, I'm putting Diddy in D tier. He's not impressive at all, but I don't think he would care about his placement. He was never really a rapper per se. He was more just the producer, the guy in the back, so that is what it is. Redman, I'm putting above Rakim. Creatively, Redman is underrated. Let's get that clear, man. Redman, very creative, super nice. He could go toe to toe with a lot of people, man. A lot of people. Commercially, I feel like he could have been better, but the skill level and he managed to have a lot of relevant moments in hip hop. Like, I don't feel like it's right for me to put him any lower than this. You know what I mean? And in terms of the 90s, he did his thing. He dug it out with Method Man. He got on 4321 with LL Cool J. He did his thing. So I'm gonna put him in B tier. A+, man. If we're gonna talk about underrated, go on YouTube or whatever. Look through this man's catalog. He ain't got too much. Listen to what is this? I think it's the Latchkey Child. Listen to that album, and then listen to his other album. I believe it's called like Hempstead High. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's what it's called. Phenomenal albums. This guy right here, I'm gonna make a video about him in the future as well. This guy right here is like the right person at the wrong time. You know what I mean? Super underrated. I'm gonna put him high C tier though. I advise you guys to listen to him. Super underrated, super nice, super dope. Come on, man. Next up, Cannabis. B+. Don't care what none of y'all say. Cannabis on a lyrical level, even on the song creating level, he was a little underrated early in his career. Man, he had everybody shook. When you would get on those DJ Clue freestyles, everybody would be like, oh my God, who is this? You still hear stories about this dude where people be so shook. They be like, he said that. Cannabis said that. Stop it. Cannabis is nice, man. Cannabis is nice. Super nice, man. Second round knockout. If he didn't create second round knockout, he would be a little lower. You know what I mean? He would be a little lower. But second round knockout is like one of the greatest diss tracks of all time. So I'm putting him here at B tier. Respectfully. Next up, DMX. S tier. double platinum, 2 platinum albums in the same year, classics. So many historical moments in the 90s. So many historical moments. So many. So many. DMX is one of the reasons a lot of these other guys on this list didn't get to shine. Lyrically, I don't think DMX was all that great, but creatively, amazing. When it came to making the music, amazing. You know what I mean? And the passion he had, and even he still had it when he was still alive. Before he passed away a couple years, he still had that essence of this is what hip hop is and this is what it should sound like. You know what I mean? So I will always have love and respect for X. You know what I mean? So rest in peace, man. But DMX is one of those guys that just created and carried hip hop on his shoulder, and just did what he had to do to show that he loved it. This is one of the guys I look up to and I respect on a high level every day. In terms of the hip hop stuff. You know what I mean? And he was somebody who was willing to take chances when it came to making the music. Making a religious Christian song once every album. Who does that? Gotta respect him for doing that and still managing to go platinum 2 times in 1 year and still proceeded to succeed. You know what I mean? So rest in peace, DMX. Busta Rhymes in the 90s, I'm gonna rate him around right here. I love Busta. I think this is at his time where he was still getting good. You know what I mean? Obviously, he became what he became later on in his career. Featured on a lot of great hits. Held his own. Did a lot of great things. In terms of the 90s, though, I think he gets overshadowed by a lot. And this is where I'm going to place him. Method Man. Method Man we put him right here. Actually above Redman. He is like the leader of Wu-Tang. I don't even got to say too much. The leader of Wu-Tang. So amazing. He kept the essence of hip hop very, fundamental. He kept it going how he did, And I love listening to that one song he got. METHOD, man. METHOD, man. Hey, you get off my cloud. Don't get, you know what I mean? Like, he's amazing. I love Method, man. I love Method. So I feel like B+ is a good spot for him. You know what I mean? But it is what it is. Now, next up, we got the greatest Latino rapper of all time. That's disrespectful. Big Pun, Big Pun, man. Capital Punishment, classic album. I'm gonna say that one more time. Capital Punishment is a classic album. I ain't gonna say that no more. Lyrically, off the chain. Creativity, off the chain. When it came to making the hits, off the chain. You know what I mean? This is another one of those dudes that, just had fun. Just loved hip hop. You know what I mean? This is when you see somebody who loves and you want to introduce somebody to hip hop, Big Pun is a good like entry level, type of rapper. Maybe not on a technicality way, but he gives you everything. He gives you hits. He gives you gritty. He gives you streets. So Big Pun easily you could listen to Capital Punishment 10 times and still be like, man, what did he say in that verse? Crazy when it came to the lyrics. Nas, another S tier, just based off of Illmatic alone. And that's it. That's all I gotta say about Nas. You know what I mean? I think Nas has a great support cast behind him, especially when it came to the making of Illmatic. An amazing supporting cast behind him. So that kind of gives him an edge. You know what I mean? Over these other dudes, but he still created Illmatic, so I can't say nothing when it comes to this list. Biggie. Mm. This where it gets interesting. I'm gonna put him. Oh man, I'm gonna make a lot of people mad. I'm putting him over Eminem. Rest in peace, Big, first of all. You know what I mean? This is no disrespect to Big. Had Big not passed away, I don't think his impact would have been as colossal as it was. You know, I love Big. You know, I learned to love Big as I gotten older. You know what I mean? He carried that essence. He's one of those people that carried that essence with him. He was possibly the only artist I could think of off the top of my head that Puffy actually managed in a good way. You know what I mean? He actually gave him a good identity. Biggie was an amazing artist, amazing rapper. I don't believe Life After Death or any of his albums were necessarily, bona fide classics. I think they're great albums, which, I know is going to upset a lot of people who might hear me say that, but I still respect his pen. I still think he's a top 10, no, he's a top 5 New York rapper of all time. I don't think you could take him out that mix. Shout out to Biggie and anyone who manages him because, he did what he did. But, that's enough of Biggie, man. Biggie, to me, is an A+ rapper in the 90s. And that's no disrespect, like I said. I can't find myself to put Biggie over Nas, Big Pun, and DMX. Not in the 90s. Not in the 90s, man. But, let's move on to 50. Now, if we're talking just strictly 90s, he released Power of the Dollar unofficially, which is, to me, an amazing album. How to Rob, all that stuff. He did a lot of cool things. We're talking about 50 in the 90s, though, so he's going to B tier just because it is the 90s. And, that's it, man. There's nowhere else to put it. This last spot, hopefully no one gets mad at me again. A tier, bottom of A tier is Jay-Z. Now, actually, no. He's above Eminem. I'll give him that. He's above Eminem. I put him here because Jay-Z used to open for DMX for shows. Just think of that. DMX was so big, so loved. Jay-Z used to open for him. You know what I mean? He did have classic albums that came out in the 90s, and that's why I moved him up past Eminem. What can I say, man? He's just the life of hip hop. I'm trying to think of just 90s here, but this man was on some other stuff. Like, Jay was a businessman from the beginning. Just phenomenal. Phenomenal. I got nothing else to say. He was good. He was a good rapper. He sold a lot of albums and stuff, and still a cultural icon to this day. But that's my list for the New York rappers list, man. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Please check out A+. Super underrated. I know y'all don't know who he is. Check out A+, man. But it's been your boy, That Kid Shady. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Let's get it.